The growing shadow between Jacob and Laban. Many years had passed since Jacob had come to the land of his uncle Laban with nothing but a staff in his hand. Now he was rich in flocks, servants, wives, and children. His herds multiplied like living rivers across the hills, and his tents filled the valleys. Yet prosperity brought not peace, but tension. Jacob noticed how the faces of Laban's sons had changed. They looked at him with narrowed eyes, whispering that Jacob had taken their father's wealth. Even Laban himself no longer greeted Jacob with warmth. The air between them grew heavy, as if a storm were gathering. Then God spoke to Jacob and told him to return to the land of his fathers, promising to be with him. Jacob knew the time had come to leave. Jacob's secret plan. Jacob called Rachel and Leah out into the open fields where the sheep grazed, far from listening ears. He reminded them how their father had treated him unfairly, changing his wages again and again. He explained how God had protected him and caused the flocks to grow in his favor. Rachel and Leah listened and agreed. They knew their father no longer regarded them as daughters but as property already spent. They believed that God had taken what was due and given it to Jacob. Together they decided to leave without telling Laban. The silent flight. While Laban was away shearing his sheep, Jacob gathered everything he owned. Camels were loaded, children lifted, tents folded, and flocks driven forward. Like a great moving shadow, Jacob's household crossed the Euphrates and fled toward the hill country of Gilead. Unknown to Jacob, Rachel took her father's household gods and hid them among her belongings. Whether out of fear, tradition, or quiet rebellion, the idols traveled with them. For 3 days the escape went unnoticed. Then word reached Laban. Laban's furious pursuit. When Laban heard of Jacob's flight, his anger burned. He gathered his men and chased after Jacob for 7 days, the dust of their pursuit rising behind them like smoke. But before Laban could reach Jacob, God came to him in a dream at night. God warned him not to harm Jacob, neither by threat nor by kindness meant to control him. When Laban finally caught up with Jacob in the hills, the tension was sharp enough to cut the air. Accusations and hidden gods. Laban confronted Jacob, accusing him of stealing away his daughters, grandchildren, and flocks like a thief. He accused Jacob of denying him the chance to say farewell. He also accused him of stealing his gods. Jacob, unaware of Rachel's actions, defended himself boldly. He reminded Laban of 20 years of hard labor, of heat and frost, of sleepless nights guarding the flocks, and of wages unjustly withheld. He declared that without the God of his father Isaac, Laban would have sent him away empty-handed. Laban searched every tent. Rachel sat upon the hidden idols and claimed she could not rise due to womanly custom. Laban found nothing and left humiliated. The covenant of stones. Jacob, now filled with righteous anger, rebuked Laban for years of injustice. Laban answered by claiming everything belonged to him, yet he proposed peace. Together they built a heap of stones as a witness. They agreed that neither would cross it to harm the other. They shared a meal, invoking God as the judge between them. At dawn, Laban kissed his daughters and grandchildren and returned home. Jacob continued on his journey, free at last. Meaning and lessons of Genesis 31. Genesis chapter 31 is not a story of creation, but a story of separation, freedom, and divine justice. It shows how God remains faithful even in long seasons of struggle. Jacob's escape marks the end of manipulation and the beginning of a new chapter in God's promise. The chapter teaches that prosperity can awaken jealousy, and that unresolved injustice will eventually demand resolution. It shows that God protects those who trust Him, even when human power threatens them. It also warns that hidden compromises, like Rachel's stolen idols, can travel silently with us if not confronted. Above all, Genesis 31 reminds us that God sees unseen labor, hears unspoken prayers, and guides his people forward even when the path requires courage, secrecy, and painful goodbyes.